So this is a parable, which means Jesus doesn't have any specific situation in mind that we know of. But he's painting a picture with words and drawing from common experiences that people would recognize and imbuing these stories with deeper spiritual meaning and truth. So in this particular case, we have to ask what kinds of things would the people be hearing? And first off, forget about the guy who's about to lose his job. He'll come into play in a minute, but we need to understand what it would be like for a wealthy person who owned a bunch of land. In the ancient world, and this would be more true for the broader Greco Roman world, if you had a ton of land, you couldn't live and work on all of it. So you would rent it out to tenant farmers. These farmers and their families would live on the land and work it. And for rent, they would give to the landowner a portion of what that land produced. So if it produces olives, then you would expect to be given a certain amount of olive oil. Now, agriculture in the ancient world was obviously necessary, but it was risky, in part because they don't have the technologies and knowledge of fertilizers that we do. And so land did not produce very much. And if you get a bad couple of years, you could either go broke or you could starve, or probably some combination of the two. So, again, in the broader Greco Roman world, it wouldn't be uncommon for the landlord to say, okay, this is your debt. We're going to knock off a portion of that, and you'll just give me a little less oil this year. Now, not only does that give the tenant farmer a little breathing room, especially if it was a bad couple of years due to drought or disease or something, but it also makes the landlord look really good in the eyes of his tenants. And a happy tenant is a productive tenant, is a tenant that's not going to like ruin your house or something like that, and then you lose the deposit, and then you have to go to court or something like that. But anyway, now think again about the story you read. This manager who handles the ledger, he's the accountant or something, is apparently messing around. He gets caught, and so he's going to lose everything. Until he does, he still has the authority to manage these accounts, and he realizes he's going to lose his home. So now he's got to find a way to make sure people will be happy to see him and give him a place to live. So he, under the authority of the landlord, goes and knocks off the debt that these tenant farmers apparently had. And we no need to get into the specifics, but the amount that these tenant farmers owe is a ton, which may indicate that Jesus has in mind a bunch of bad growing seasons due to, again, drought or disease or something like that. So think about what that does. This account manager just made the landlord look really good while also giving the tenant farmers a bunch of very much needed relief. In this scenario, literally everybody wins. I mean, this is a brilliant manager, and really, because it's a story Jesus made up, this is a brilliant story. Now, I think the best way to understand this particular parable, and by the way, this is one of the most complicated and difficult parables in all of the Gospels. Scholars are completely confused and divided over what this means. But I think the best way to understand it is when Jesus says that the sons of this world are more shrewd than the sons of light. Now, the sons of this world would be non-God following Gentiles, people who, for all intents and purposes, wouldn't necessarily know better to treat people with kind of a God honoring respect. And the sons of light would be his own people, the Jewish people, children of Abraham, people who have God's teaching and law, the covenant, so to speak. But he just described a situation that happens in the Greco-Roman world, and we know this from quite a few ancient documents. But then he's also saying that the sons of light, his fellow Jews, are not doing this. And I think what Jesus is touching on here is the fact that Jesus is living and ministering at a time when there is a growing financial crisis. Those who were the wealthy elite, especially in Jerusalem and around Judea, were using their wealth to take advantage of the poor. So, say you are poor, but you happen to own some land, and the planting season is coming. You can't really make ends meet. You need to buy seed for the next year. You need to buy supplies and food for your family. So, you'll be taking out a loan. Who is going to have the loan? Well, the wealthy elite. And now the wealthy will actually be very happy to loan you some money under the terms that you then take your land and put it up as collateral. And we have loads of ancient documentation that describes exactly this. And if you're wealthy, you're thinking, all right, he pays back the loan with some interest, which you're not supposed to do, but they were doing anyway. Great, you earn a little bit of interest. That poor landowner defaults on that loan, even better. You now get to seize that land and add it to your already large portfolio. This cycle of debt and these and other predatory financial practices were running rampant during the time and ministry of Jesus, and it eventually becomes a major factor in the first Jewish-Roman War about a generation after Jesus. So then this parable becomes really an indictment against Jesus' own people, and especially the wealthy who are using their wealth in predatory ways to take advantage of the poor and line their own pockets in the process. Now, from this, there's plenty that we can take and apply to our own lives as we think about what it means as followers of Jesus to deal with money with integrity. But I'll leave that up to you and your discussion.